Thank you for joining us here at the Knoxville Open, sponsored by Ultimate Guard. This is the first of our many quarterfinal matches between Bradley Hill and Christopher Johnson. In a top 8 that was 4 Delirium decks and 3 Flash decks, Bradley, the lone control player here on Just Got Control, winning his last round. He's now going to see if he can do it again. He's on the play against Christopher Johnson. And for Bradley, this is his first top 8 here on the SCG Tour. Second for Christopher, but no trophies for either player. And players will trade lands to start. And for Christopher, he gets out with Thraben Inspector.
Thraben Inspector is one of the actually more pesky cards for control decks because you don't want to use a removal spell on it, and it ends up getting in for a good amount of damage often, and it also just replaces itself. It doesn't look like much.
Yeah, and some of the removal spells for Bradley, cards like Blessed Alliance, can really be hurt by Thraben Inspector.
Yeah, he has things that Christopher chooses which creature that he sacrifices if he end up in combat, and that 1/2 can really get in the way there.
Players trade lands. Christopher tries to get a second creature on the board with Selfless Spirit, but it'll be met by the counterspell Revolutionary Rebuff.
And these rebuffs are going to get a lot worse as the game progresses for both players, but drawing them early and getting a spell is very powerful.
Aether Hub is the turn 3 land for Bradley. Now he's got only blue-white lands in the hub, but keep in mind, at least for game 1, he does play Radiant Flames in his deck, has one in his hand already.
He has access to Harness Lightning, 4 copies to potentially get more energy for the hub as well. And Glimmer of Genius, of course. 4 copies of that as well.
So land and go. This is a good play here actually for Bradley. So on end step, Bradley went for Anticipate. Christopher Johnson spell quelled it, and this means the Radiant Flames is going to be able to nab both creatures for Bradley Hill.
That was a very aggressive spell queller here, and Radiant Flames mana already on the table. Christopher knows there's 3 copies in the deck. So Bradley's just wondering, is he trying to get him? A potential Gideon follow-up could be bad news for Bradley, so he has to consider that.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. Can Bradley afford to Radiant Flames here? He has 2 in his hand. But if he does, and Christopher Johnson resolves Gideon, are we at game over? You mentioned before just how important that card is in the matchup.
And Bradley likely passing for exactly that reason.
That is a lot of respect. Smuggler's Copter, the play for Christopher Johnson, leaving up 2 mana. Could be a counterspell, could just be cracking a clue. We'll see if Bradley Hill responds. He's got Anticipate, may go for that.
Yeah, if you were able to, well, he can anticipate into negate, though. If his big concern is Gideon, I wouldn't really care about pulling the trigger there.
Well, Bradley Hill, he doesn't have 2 Radiant Flames. His hand is a Radiant Flames, and Anticipate, and a Harnessed Lightning. So he gets to decide now, you know, lining up which kill spells he wants on which creature.
The unfortunate element is the Harness Lightning would cost him his energy through his Aether Hub, and also he would have to spend 3 energy to kill the relevant creatures here.
Then he can't Radiant Flames. So he'll go for an end step Anticipate. Took 3 that turn, dropped to 15. And it looks like there might be a Revolutionary Rebuff in Christopher Johnson's hand. So not just clue mana up, he also has the counterspell. Port Town, the draw for Bradley Hill.
Yeah.
Plays it untapped thanks to the island in his hand.
Still no non-hub red sources.
So he only gets one of these 2 red cards, huh?
Yep.
He'll go for Radiant Flames, now with 2 mana up. And that's going to resolve. Here's the Anticipate. I'm interested. So Christopher Johnson has Revolutionary Rebuff. If he had cast it, do you think Bradley Hill would have paid?
It would be a test for sure. He really wants to represent, at least represent a counterspell against a potential Gideon.
Well, he gets the Anticipate back, selects a card, and passes the turn. So that is most of the pressure taken off the board. We go back to Christopher Johnson. He's got 2 more lands. He's got a counterspell. A Smuggler's Copter in play, but right now is not attacking for anything. And he's going to go straight for Archangel Avacyn. This is main phase on the 4/4. Let's see if there's a counterspell, right? And it's going to work. The Angel will be into play. She will step inside the Smuggler's Copter and fly on over for 3. Here's a loot. Draw and discard. Draws Stasis Snare. Looks like he's going to get rid of the Port Town in his hand.
Still another Plains for lands in hand as well. And for Bradley, he had to use his 1 shot at red mana immediately, so he wasn't able to do something. He couldn't harness lightning that Avacyn, even if he had another energy.
He is really hurting here. You see he plays Wandering Fumarole for the turn. He also has Spire Bluff Canal, but he's got a lot of need for red mana. His hand, not just Harness Lightning, he's picked up Nahiri the Harbinger as well.
Unfortunately, Avacyn doesn't often find itself tapped.
It was last turn, actually.
It was.
And I was thinking, wow, that's... And Christopher's going to give it to him, do it again.
Oh, wow.
So this is great, actually. Avacyn's going to crew the Smuggler's Copter. He hits in and puts Bradley to 9, but this is... Bradley was not going to be able to get rid of Avacyn until this happened.
Yeah. And then Christopher would need to be able to produce another creature to copter into the Avacyn, or to the Nahiri to deal with that.
Wow. This is really neat. Okay, Bradley Hill draws. It's another red source. It's another tapped red source.
And that's fine. You know, he has access to his red now.
But he has enough mana to play Nahiri and play around Revolutionary Rebuff.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like that's going to be the play. Tapping 4. What a punishment here. Avacyn, you should not have gotten inside the Smuggler's Copter. And here's the Planeswalker. Nahiri the Harbinger, -2 exiles the Legendary Angel. Another 7th land for Bradley. And he will pass. Nahiri's in trouble if Christopher's deck can produce a creature this turn.
And Christopher really needs this creature to his hand. He's got extra lands, stasis snares that only do anything after a Torrential Gearhulk has resolved.
He doesn't. His hand has 2 space stasis snares, a land, and a Revolutionary Rebuff. This is huge. That Bradley gets to untap with this Nahiri is way more than he ever expected.
Right. You know, in Christopher's hand, he really wanted those loots, so there was definitely incentive to crew up the Copter, but it cost him big time.
Yeah, so now Bradley discards an island, draws, passes turn. His hand is 2 Harness Lightnings, and it looks like a Torrential Gearhulk. This is an excellent hand.
Mm-hmm. And now with the Nahiri up to 4 loyalty, even the Thraben Inspector crewing up the Copter won't quite be able to take it down.
Right, so this time Thraben Inspector will try to drive the Smuggler's Copter, but Bradley will harness some lightning to shoot the Copter. In response, Christopher's going to crack the clue, try to find something, and it's just a land. That's not going to play. 2 lands, 2 stasis snares, and a Revolutionary Rebuff. He loses the vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Excess lands, a couple cards that he intends to board out in this matchup. Things are really not shaping up for Christopher.
Christopher's going to pass the turn. Now, this is interesting. Bradley has to decide whether or not he wants to go for Gearhulk on this end step. He will. You cannot Revolutionary Rebuff that. But you could Revolutionary Rebuff this Anticipate if you wanted. And I'm somewhat surprised Christopher didn't do it. But
for all the difference it makes, it's not super relevant.
Yeah, it's going to snare away the Gearhulk.
I like getting rid of the Gearhulk. He's still under duress. Dealing with the Nahiri is going to be very important.
Yeah, but hold on. You don't want to stasis snare that at all. Nahiri can exile an enchantment, and she'll do just that, giving him another Gearhulk and another Anticipate.
That's a bummer.
That was, I think, just a misstep for Christopher Johnson.
I mean, what can he do, right?
You just can't cast those. I know that's horrible, but
his
this was
hand does
worse.
Nothing.
This was worse.
I mean, he's not building up to anything, though.
Bradley's hand's 2 more Gearhulks.
Christopher's hand is 5 blanks.
Okay, so what you're saying is this was over already.
Yeah, this game ended several turns ago.
Another land for Christopher Johnson, and now Bradley's going to start turning the corner. Here is another
His
Gearhulk.
hand is full of Gearhulks, in fact.
Is it just 2 more?
He has a bunch of his best cards in the matchup, and Christopher has just nonsense in his hand.
He'll flashback Harness Lightning.
Yeah, get that Inspector out of here.
Sure. That is gone, and now Bradley has an extra energy to work with.
And a 2-turn clock here.
I suppose that, too. He'll untap, swing with the pair, 5/5s. Loot with the Nahiri first. He still has that Scatter to the Winds in hand. That's a hard counter should Christopher Johnson draw any sort of answer.
Swing with the Gearhulks. Christopher will stasis snare again because it's really the only thing he can do. Technically buys him time, loses him value.
I mean, that's true. This is once again a stasis snare on board with a Nahiri on the other side of the board. And we're not going to play any longer. Game 1 goes to Bradley Hill and Jeskai Control.
Yep, Christopher certainly seen enough there.
What a display. So it seemed like there was a lot of tension about until turn 7. Once Bradley survived to then, things got real bad.
Yeah, that Nahiri basically took over the game once it hit the battlefield. When it was able to exile the Avacyn, that was kind of the whole game there. Christopher's hand was just glutted with both extra lands and stasis snares, which are largely ineffective in this matchup. He also had the Revolutionary rebuff that, of course, can't counter a Torrential Gearhulk. Really just doesn't do too much unless he was able to use it against, the Nahiri, but Bradley was more than capable of paying for that.
All right, so this is our first match of the top 8 here in Knoxville. We are at just nearing the end of Season 3, but there's one more tournament here in Season 3 that's coming up in 2 weeks. It's going to be the Invitational in Atlanta to end the season, and starting Season 1 of next year at the Atlanta Open.
Join us on the SCG Tour December 2nd through the 4th for the Atlanta Invitational Weekend. Starting Friday, qualified players compete in Standard and Modern for a spot in the Players' Championship, a custom SCG token, and a chance to play on the Magic the Gathering Pro Tour. On Saturday, compete in the Standard Open. Every participant gets a playmat featuring Smuggler's Copter, plus our latest Invitational Winners token just for playing. The top 8 finishers earn a spot in an upcoming Invitational and get one step closer to the Players' Championship. On Sunday, choose between Modern and Standard Classics. All participants get an Invitational Winners token, Modern players receive an Ether Vial playmat, Standard players receive a Smuggler's Copter playmat, and the top 4 competitors in each classic qualify for an Invitational. There's plenty more to do in Atlanta. All weekend, play in side events and earn tickets to spend at the SCG Prize Wall. And don't forget to tune into SCG Live as Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, Matthias Hunt, Ryan Overturf, and Nick Miller bring you coverage all weekend long. The Atlanta Invitational Weekend is December 2nd through the 4th. Greatness begins here.
So that's in 2 weeks in Atlanta, the Atlanta Invitational. Now back in our top 8 here in Knoxville, Bradley Hill and Christopher Johnson head toward Game 2, along with the other matches in progress. So we have some results. Kenneth D'Souza, 1-0, up a game on Grant Christopher in the Delirium Mirror. Brad Nelson with Delirium wins a game over Emma Handy as they go into Game 2, and it is Joshua Mason with Blue-White taking Game 1 over his opponent Eric Flickinger. So going into the sideboards here, we're going to go back to White-Blue Flash. We've got 2 Fragmentize, 2 Blessed Alliance, 2 Immolating Glare, 2 Negate, a Quarantine Field, 2 Gisela the Broken Blade, and a Bruna to go with them, 2 Jace Unraveler of Secrets, and a Linvala the Preserver. Now, a lot of these cards seem to let Christopher become a control deck when he wants, but what happens when he's actually facing a control deck?
So these cards do not line up against true do-nothing control especially well. The negates are good for buying time. You can use them to counter the Planeswalkers out of Bradley. That's very good. Can't counter a Gearhulk. There's really nothing you can do about a Gearhulk here. So once we get to that phase of the game, Christopher's in trouble. The most important cards he has when we get there are going to be these Giselas and this Bruna to try to assemble Bricella. Maybe you can steal a game that way. Of course, that doesn't really do a lot against Blessed Alliance. So the lines here are pretty slim. So he's going to be bringing in negates and Jason Raveler as secrets and just kind of crossing his fingers and hoping for the best.
I suppose if Gideon's his best card, Jace could be very good in this matchup if he somehow resolves it.
Yeah, getting the Planeswalkers on the battlefield are the only way he's going to be able to keep pace with Bradley's simple spells like Glimmer of Genius.
Yeah. On Bradley's side, he's actually got some tap-out threats of his own, but we'll go over it. Full 4 Spell Quellers, 3 Gideons, 2 Brutal Expulsions, and then a Linvala, a Blessed Alliance, a Negate, a Descend Upon the Sinful, and a pair of Summary Dismissals.
So we saw him playing against Chris Anderson earlier in the tournament. Certainly the Descend Upon the Sinful is there, way to sweep to the board. He's brought in Spell Quellers as well. I imagine a lot of the ideas just to engage in combat with flyers. That seems totally reasonable.
Yeah.
Linval is a giant flyer. That seems great. Go up on Blessed Alliance. Why not? Negate for Gideon seems significant. I would certainly be bringing that one in. And probably the Gideons myself, just to keep pace with the Gideon that might sneak through. Just another haymaker on your side as well.
I really think this 4 Spell Queller sideboard is pretty interesting. There's this bind that control decks can frequently do where your opponent boards out all their removal, so then you board in some sort of creature-based threat. We've seen it with cards. There's like a history of cards that does this. Stuff like Night Veil Spectre used to do that out of control decks. Spell Queller seems like a great option, just I would think in most matchups.
Yeah, Christopher doesn't really want any removal spells. He's getting rid of these stasis snares. They were horrible there, and you can use Spell Queller to take a Gideon, Christopher's best card.
Yeah, you can block Selfless Spirits, you can block Thraben Inspectors. This is pretty good. Christopher Johnson, the 5 seed, he'll be on the play for this game. He is down 1. Last game, for a while, it seemed as though Christopher might be able to win it.
Yeah, there was just kind of the writing on the wall of how bad his hand was shaping up to be.
Yeah,
It eventually just caught up with him.
so both players have kept their 7. We're underway for game 2. Island the start for Christopher Johnson. No Thraben Inspector. For Bradley, of course, it's just a land. It's a Wandering Fumarole, though, to help his colors. And Christopher will make the first threat in Selfless Spirit.
Definitely good to get some creatures onto the battlefield early, try to mount some kind of offensive. Christopher wants to close this game as quickly as possible.
Inspiring Vantage for Bradley. And you look at how his control deck is starting to shape up. He's got Negate, he's got Void Shatter, and he has Fumigate. So 2 counters and a sweeper. But as long as a Selfless Spirit's on the board, the sweeper's not going to do much. An attack of Selfless Spirit will get Blessed Alliance from Bradley Hill. Christopher, nothing doing. Spell Queller will remove the spell from the stack, and the Spirit swings in for 2.
Yeah, as long as Christopher is able to continue to leverage some aggression and has some kind of counterspell for that Fumigate, this position is not looking terrible.
Port Town showing Island. This is the kind of start that when I'm a control player and playing against tempo that I'm just really scared of. You know, like a card like aggro into Spell Quell my removal, that's very hard to deal with.
So here's an interesting dilemma here, is if this Spell Queller dies in combat, Bradley
Yeah.
can use the Blessed Alliance as this edict effect. So hopefully Christopher has some kind of defense here.
Well, if Bradley went for that play and Christopher didn't have an answer, he would just sacrifice the Selfless Spirit.
True.
And so Bradley's going to actually, in response to that, to get around that, he's just going to harness Lightning, the Selfless Spirit, instead of even going for Queller. You know, this is where the spell's pointed at the end of the day anyway, right?
Right.
But I mean, it's not going to work. Revolutionary Rebuff from Christopher Johnson. And I like the line from Bradley. He wants to kill the Spirit so that if he gets to Fumigate, there's no Selfless Spirit in play.
Yep.
Draw a 4th land from Bradley Hill. He will pass back. We're on Christopher Johnson's turn. It's turn 5. Christopher actually missed a land drop on turn 4, but he's picked up land 4 here.
And Christopher has multiple 5-mana spells in hand, it looks like. I suppose they're not necessarily all Avacyn. It's just checklist cards.
Some
that we
angels.
have confirmed here. Yeah, could be some angels.
Another Harness Lightning goes at Selfless Spirit. This time it's going to work. 2 damage onto Bradley, though.
It'll remove the spirit anyway. No energy will be floating because the spirit will be sacrificed.
How about another Selfless Spirit from Christopher Johnson? He'll do that and pass. Bradley Hill is going to have to anticipate. And this is going the way of the Flash deck right now. You see Bradley Hill's remaining cards are the Negate, the Void Shatter, and the Fumigate. They don't play very well right here.
No, they're not doing a ton just yet. Christopher needs to find a 5th land, though. He's in a good position right now, and Bradley's life total is quite low, but he has a lot of cards that could turn this around.
Draw is Descend Upon the Sinful. That's the kind of sweeper he'd like. It's 6 mana, which is a lot.
You need land drops. I'm not seeing a land in the hand.
He'll say go. Looks like he anticipated into Spell Queller, so he could have a blocker here. Well, unless Christopher Stasis snares it, which it's going to happen.
Yeah, it must have been no lands in the top 3 on this anticipate.
A swing again in the skies for Christopher Johnson. And Bradley, is he going to try to flash in a blocker, or is he just going to take it? Asks for cards in hand. It's 4. Got a decision to make. He has counter spells to leave up. If he goes for the spell card play, he takes down his counters. He will. Here's the 2-3. Now we'll see whether Christopher lets him block. I don't think he's going to. Here's Stasis Snare.
Yep. And, the Stasis Snares were poor in game 1. Christopher anticipated the Spell Quellers being here, so that would be a reason to leave in some number of the Stasis Snares.
Yeah. Bradley goes down to 8. No land for Christopher. But no land for Bradley meant if he had the 5th land, he could have negated there. And a huge draw right now, actually, though, for Bradley Hill. Draws Nahiri the Harbinger. That will take care of either creature. It exiles.
Yep, that's significant.
So here's
Could also
Nahiri.
just take care of the Stasis Snare.
Ooh, I like that too. And that's what Bradley Hill's going to do. Get rid of Snare and say go. Now, actually, tell me, I want to talk about that for a second. Why remove the Stasis Snare instead of just hitting one of the creatures?
So now he has a threat here. He can divert both attackers to the Nahiri. He wants to for sure use that to get rid of the Stasis Snare eventually. He's going to have more stuff that can deal with creatures. The Spell Snare, or the Spell Queller, forces a different kind of action.
I guess he would be true. Yeah. He's going to play Gisela the Broken Blade. Christopher can get the Nahiri if he's willing to trade Selfless Spirit for it. And it looks like he is. And this is a big win for Bradley. He loses the Planeswalker, but Christopher loses the Spirit. If Bradley draws a land, he gets to Fumigate. He does not.
Land.
It's a Spell Queller.
That one's
not
still
horrible,
fine.
yeah.
Christopher himself is also looking for a land to start casting. I believe it's Avacyn in the leftovers. We'll find out.
So Bradley's hand, 2 sweepers. Descend upon the Sinful and Fumigate. 2, or I guess 3 counterspells, depending on how you want to look at it. Negate, Void Shatter, and Spell Queller.
And as it stands, Gisela is a two-turn clock, and even if Bradley were to cast the other Spell Queller, it just first strikes 1 down in combat.
Christopher's going to try for Selfless Spirit number 3, and I think Bradley will have to counter here. If he wants to draw into land Fumigates, he can't have this on the board.
Right.
And this is an interesting choice. He's going to Spell Quell it. This means if he Fumigates, Christopher actually gets back a Selfless Spirit. The other option was to Void Shatter it.
You know, the Spell Queller, it helps him engage in combat a little bit better, but given that the Gisela's first strike, it's not doing a lot here.
Bradley down to 4 on the attack. He draws again.
Void
Another
Shatter.
Void Shatter. He needs more lands. Now he's going to be into chump block mode.
And he saw several extra cards just to find this 5th land with that Anticipate and just wasn't able to turn anything up.
I mean, this has got to be scary, though, for Christopher Johnson, right? What if at any point here, you know, Bradley just harnessed Lightnings down the Spell Queller, gets the Blessed Alliance, sack the Gisela? These are all scary things.
Yep.
Land.
So now Christopher has the lands. So whether it's Avacyn and he has access to it already, or he just needs a 7th land to Bruna, Christopher's got some stuff going on in the tank, too.
Bradley Hill finally hits land 5, but it's an Inspiring Vantage, so it will enter the battlefield tapped. End step, Avacyn. Absolutely not, says Bradley. Exiles it with a Void Shatter.
Christopher has another Stasis Snare here that'll end this game.
Smuggler's Copter, the draw for Johnson. He can swing both. Bradley has to block the 4-3, so he'll go down to 2. He'll give Christopher back the Selfless Spirit, which means his Fumigate is no longer good, but
Bradley needs untapped land here for that
Yeah.
Descend upon the Sinful.
Smuggler's Copter for Christopher. Is there Delirium in Bradley's yard? Planeswalker, instant creature. No sorcery.
He found the land, though. He's dead to any follow-up, and then Smuggler's Copter, though.
Right. If he had the 4th card type in his graveyard, this Descend would make an Angel, and he'd actually just be pretty safe. That's not going to be the case. But he does get, he's not actually dead, because when he descends here,
Oh, he gets to gain 4 life.
he gets to gain 4 life.
Not bad.
Right. Here's Descend upon the Sinful. It exiles all the creatures. Blessed Alliance. Yeah, gain 4. Bradley goes to 6. And we might yet have a game. Christopher gets 1 turn to resolve whatever he wants, but if Bradley untaps, remember, his hand is double Void Shatter. And
Christopher has a 6-mana 5/5 here in Linvala.
he's going to go for it. His last card, Spell Queller. He'll crew the Copter.
Christopher thinking about whether he wants to loot. I certainly would.
Yeah, okay, draws a Plains. We'll discard that. But Bradley goes to 3. Some other matches starting game 3s, Kenneth D'Souza and Grant Christopher going to 3. Eric Flickinger and Joshua Mason also going to 3. And how about Linval the Preserver? Bradley's got one of his own.
Gain himself a little bit of life and have parity against Christopher's 5/5.
So I actually need to correct myself. The card that I believed was Fumigate, I think was just Linvala this entire time. So his hand is still Negate Void Shatter.
Kind of serves the same purpose, but gains him more life than Fumigate on this board.
Spell Queller's the play for Christopher. He will crew Smuggler's Copter. This means that this attack is lethal. It is 8 points if he makes it.
Yeah, and he really wants to loot. He has basic island here. If he finds another Stasis Snare, this just wins on this turn.
A loot, he'll discard an island. His next card is Jace, though. Smuggler's Copter did a lot of work. He swings. Bradley goes down to 3 and eats Smuggler's Copter.
Unfortunately, that Jace is close to 0% to resolve on the following turn.
Yeah, absolutely not. And Bradley, a great draw here. It is a Harnessed Lightning. That answers the board right now. And the control player may have just hung on long enough. We will see. Go to Christopher Johnson. He's got Smuggler's Copter. Jace.
And only the mana for 1, 6 lands in the battlefield.
Yeah, 7 means he might actually get one of them down. Does he want to attack? He'll start with Jace, Unraveler of Secrets. There's just no way. Negate.
And I like the attack here from Christopher. It goes with the Linvala and the Spell Queller, because the Spell Queller presumably is a free attack, because Bradley would have to block the Linvala, assuming that his hand is beatable at all.
So a swing here trades everything. Spell Queller gets Harnessed Lightning. The Linvala's trade. Christopher says go. Now we're in a top deck war. Bradley Hill's one card going into this top deck war was a copy of Void Shatter. So he's got an answer to the first thing that Christopher Johnson does. We'll see where we go from there.
Bradley also has Wandering Fumarole, where there are no creature lands in Christopher's deck. He could presumably start turning up the heat with that. He doesn't have enough lands to attack and leave up Void Shatter, though.
Smuggler's Copter from Christopher. I wonder if that'll get the Shatter. It's not actually a threat yet. Yeah. And Bradley lets it resolve.
Countering that would be very aggressive.
He's got a couple Blessed Alliances, so he's picking up removal. It's interesting back and forth. Our first result, though, is in the 2 versus 7 matchup. Eric Flickinger with Black-Green Delirium defeats Joshua Mason and moves on to the semifinals. He will play the winner of Brad Nelson and Emma Handy. So an attempt at Gideon from Christopher there. That was his top deck. That'll get the counter spell out of Bradley's hand for sure.
Yeah, much better target for Void Shatter than the Smuggler's Copter would have been.
And Glimmer of Genius for Bradley, main phase. 2 energy, scry 2, draw 2. This is the kind of card that wins games from here.
Yep.
You got Negate, Void Shatter? Yeah, takes them both.
When your opponent just keeps the cards that they scry with Glimmer.
That's so bad.
That's a gut-wrenching feeling.
Thraben Inspector. Okay, this is actually a great draw for Christopher. It's a cantrip. It crews the Copter. I like this. Yeah. It'll crew the Copter.
So if he is able to produce a counterspell for this Blessed Alliance with this Clue token, or if he has one, that's game.
Yeah, he's going to go for it. Clue, draw a card. Does he hit a counterspell? No, but he hits an Angel.
Okay, that's something.
Has Christopher has to sacrifice an attacking creature.
It is nice that Bradley wasn't able to escalate the Alliance to gain any life, so Bradley still at 3.
So this is now resolving the trigger. Discards Quarantine Field for Christopher Johnson. So Bradley did the sacrifice with the draw discard trigger on the stack. And actually, this is not an Angel. This is a copy of Westvale Abbey. And that's, boy, is that good right now.
Yeah, he'll be able to start just
making 1/1s,
cranking out 1/1s.
How does this is really going to be a problem, actually, for Bradley.
Yeah, as long as Christopher doesn't get too aggressive and make a 9/9 with 5 creatures exactly and walk into a Blessed Alliance, these stream of 1/1s would be very good.
Yeah, Bradley with a good draw, though. He has picked up a Torrential Gearhulk. He passes the turn. Here is Torrential Gearhulk, and he can leave up Negate. Just a great place for Bradley Hill.
Gearhulk and Glimmer is so powerful.
And that's exactly what he's going to do.
I've Gearhulked a lot of Glimmers in my time. You don't lose many of those games.
Spell Queller on the Glimmer, though, from Christopher Johnson, and the Negate in Bradley Hill's hand is no good here.
Right,
so
that's substantial. Bradley can't block a flyer. And I believe it looks like Bradley still has another Blessed Alliance, so that'll help him in the face of the Spell Queller, and then Negate back up. So still in a fine position.
Okay, so all right, so Spell Queller swings. Blessed Alliance is the play. Okay, we have asked a judge on this. Despite the fact that Glimmer of Genius was flashed back, if this Spell Queller dies, Bradley gets to resolve it.
Yeah, it's a strange interaction.
Yeah. You might wonder, because sometimes, when you remand a flashback card, it just goes away. Not how Spell Queller works.
Yeah, because it just exiles the spell.
Yeah, it doesn't counter it, it exiles it.
Well, it's also because it goes to exile. Both things are asking it to go to exile, and the Spell Queller has text that says it returns. And that's what matters.
So Christopher sacrifices an attacker. Bradley gains 4 life, and now he resolves Glimmer of Genius. This is just the hugest Blessed Alliance. Nahiri, negate, spell queller. I'm no longer worried about this Westvale Abbey.
No. It can provide a stream of chump blockers to hold off this Gear Hulk for a minute, but Brad's got more and more cards in hand all the time.
So one thing that could have been done here, and this may be a misstep on Christopher Johnson's side, with Bradley at 3, if Christopher had attacked with Thraben Inspector and Spell Queller, he could have avoided this fate.
True.
I guess still post-combat it would have happened. Anyway, now Bradley plays a Nahiri, pluses it to 6, and he looks to be grabbing control of the game. His hand is now Spell Queller, Scatter to the Winds, and Negate. He's got 3 counters. Christopher's going to go for an end-step Avacyn, but that's not going to work either.
Pass on that one.
Scatter to the Winds, a straight counter spell.
Still with negate backup.
Yeah, it's negate. So Christopher could resolve another Angel here, but his hand is 2 lands. When Bradley untaps, then I think this is done.
Yep.
Nahiri will keep moving up. Bradley will start maintaining his counterspell wall again.
Nahiri is able to find another Gear Hulk once he gets up to 8 loyalty.
Bradley draws for turn. It's Immolating Glare. Bradley pluses the Nahiri to 8, discarding nothing. That's never what you want to see from the other deck. He'll just pass.
And Abbey token coming down here for Christopher. He has no shortage of life to pay.
Yeah, it goes out, makes a cleric, goes to 31.
Another land off the top for Christopher, just sitting there with 3 lands in hand.
Here up to 8. So a pass again to Bradley. They're just trading card draws. And a Glimmer of Genius, the draw for Bradley that turn.
That's a good one.
Sure. I mean, it's more of what he wants. So the Nahiri Ultimate will happen from Bradley. He'll get a Torrential Gear Hulk from his deck. That's going to enter the battlefield. Give any one of these cards flashback. Just cast it. Any of the instants.
Anything is fine here. I'd even be fine Harness Lightning down the token.
He'll go for Glimmer of Genius. That one, the one that was under Spell Queller, was back in the graveyard. So, Squires on the bottom, draws 2, swings for 10 with the Gear Hulks. And Chris will block 1 with a Cleric, so he goes to 26. We'll make that 25 on end step. And remember, that Gear Hulk comes back to Bradley's hand to enter the battlefield from Nahiri.
I've never Nahiri'd a Gear Hulk, but that has to feel so good.
Actually, it looks like there was 1 Cleric went in front of each Gear Hulk. So he's at 30, but it has no Clerics. So back up there. Harness Lightning. Then Bradley's going to end step, replay the Gear Hulk, Harness Lightning, the Thraben Inspector, draw and start to play. Chris Johnson is out of creatures.
Yep.
He can stave off some damage for a while with Westvale Abbey, but the 6-card hand of Bradley's, that's just not going to get anywhere. He'll go to 24.
And Bradley just needs to keep turning these Gear Hulks sideways, leave up all his mana. He has enough answers in hand to deal with whatever Christopher's up to. I think a 3rd Gear Hulk hanging out as well.
Sure. Gideon, the draw from Christopher. But at this point, the draws don't really matter. There's just too many counterspells in Bradley Hill's hand.
Not just counterspells, but also just double Gear Hulk can attack Gideon very easily. No way to get any of this stuff off the battlefield.
Keep in mind, after the conclusion of this match, we will go over to the match between Emma Handy and Brad Nelson. Currently in Game 2, Brad Nelson is up 1-0.
Got to figure the longer that one goes, the more it favors Brad.
Yeah, in the individual games, certainly there's this window. When you get to turn 10, 11, Black-Green Delirium starts becoming a big favorite.
You have Spell Queller, I have Emrakul. It's not ideal.
Bradley continues to push on ahead. Glimmer of Genius, the play. 7 mana, those Harness Lightnings are now just terminates.
They kind of start the game as basically terminates in this matchup.
Yeah, it's
Avacyn specifically is kind of the one exception.
And it will take a few more turns, but you see looks like multiple Scatter to the Winds in Bradley's hand. So another Gear Hulk maybe.
There will come a point where he just uses Harness Lightning to kill the Westphal
Tokens.
Abbey token before blockers.
Sure. Here's the swing. Christopher Johnson's going to go to make a Cleric. Yeah, sure, he'll go to 18, though. Takes 6. 1 off the Abbey, 5 off the unblocked Gear Hulk. And we'll pass. Back to Christopher Johnson.
And
go.
I like what Bradley's doing here, and by that I mean attacking and nothing else.
Right.
The only way to possibly lose this game would be to tap too much mana for no good reason.
You know, and Christopher Johnson has played to his outs. He was waiting until he had all his mana worth of stuff to do, and that's this turn. He plays Gideon. He had the ability to play Gideon, negate if a counter war happened. Now, this is playing to your out in the situation. The unfortunate news is that Bradley Hill's hand is just far too good to not beat this. But we do see on end step, Bradley lets it resolve and then plays a third Gear Hulk, casting Harness Lightning on the Cleric. That is a huge show of strength. And untaps, he may just try to win in 2 turns here.
If he has one more removal spell, he can fire up the Fumarole and win on this turn.
Looks like he's going to go do that. This is a Fumarole. This could be a swing for 19. Christopher Johnson's at 18. A swing. If Johnson makes a 1-1, he's going to lose. And that's what he's going for. Another Harness Lightning. Game and match. Bradley Hill dominant here with Jeskai control, and he is on to the semis.
It's surprising to me, the fact that Torrential Gear Hulk has faded from the format. It's so powerful. Once you're able to start Gear Hulking, you saw how Brad was just knocking Christopher around. Generated so much card advantage. Glimmer of Genius, Gear Hulk into Glimmer of Genius, removal spells for all of your stuff, counter spells for any of your top decks, and this is the power of the Jeskai control deck.